It's 20 to 1 on Sunday morning, the 24th of September. This is for the interest of the Europeans, the Hindu families, the South American families, all of the Brexiteers that have respect for personal privacy, for the right to protection, and for all respects of the arts and heritage and culture that I have qualified in, and that is of each identity and nationality of the utmost of importance. As I've been relaying, there have been people in this community in County Kerry that have been highly rude regarding my property and my nuptials and my child's upbringing. They're guilty of quite dangerous offences towards other nationalities, and they have for 20 years been offending the arts. So, as an anthropologist, as an artist, as a sociologist from the University of Limerick, I'd appreciate those that have prospered and been benefiting directly and indirectly from my humanitarianism, that being Brexit and COVID-19, that frauds in County Kerry are still putting their name to as the thieves of other people's hard-earned wealth. These people have no authority, they've no right, they've no remit, they've no dignity, they've no respect, and they've no credibility. And I'd appreciate the United Nations respecting the declaration and locating the keys to my apartment and my child that is missing person, legally a missing person, and obstructing trespass on farm holdings of my matrimony of the 30th of the 3rd within the Catholic Church. There are people in Tralee, County Kerry, for the past 20 years that have been disturbed mentally due to their preoccupation of what doesn't belong to them and are not meeting their debts still to this day for damages, defamation, and disrespect. The representatives that have illegally withheld my keys have not had contact with any residential tenancy board. The RTB has not been in communication with me. There has been no eviction, and they have no respect for the protocol associated with my citizenship, and they have no respect for the Brexit and COVID-19 humanitarianism that I am single-handedly responsible for. These people were doing witchcraft. They're still doing witchcraft. They're still of blasphemy against the Catholic Church. They're still interfering in matrimony that they have no entitlement to be discussing. They have been corrupting the Garda Síochána. The local Garda Síochána are aware of what has happened as a consequence of these ASBOs in society since my child was abducted in January 2017. The Garda Síochána are fully aware of my associations with victim support and Narcotics Anonymous as a recovery advocate and as a practitioner. The Garda Síochána are also aware that the residents of false reporting since 2019 have been assisting corruption and crime of guilty debt evaders that owe very dangerous money to my good name since 2006. They are also responsible for harms to my child. So this is an update for the Garda Síochána. I've been of crime prevention. I'm experiencing crime, and it's simply just so unsafe for any ASBO suffering from mental illness and preoccupations with my property, creative and intellectual, and laying claim to Brexit developments as a consequence of witches and warlocks taking from a table where they have awful dirty debts and doing awful dangerous harm. So as a recovery advocate, as a humanitarian, as a mother, it's quite dangerous for my good name to be offended on behalf of more corrupt culprits of crime. There have been lives prospered, protected, and rescued and recovered as a consequence of me. Now, with all due respect for the young girls of society, those that have been responsible for illegally interfering with my arrangements at 18 Rock Street, stalking, stealing, and slandering, are guilty since 2019. 2016 and 2006 respectively. So this is an update for the Department of Justice. and the Department of Health and the department's all social protection that has been underpaying me as well for the legislation of the state and abroad that I have been experiencing frauds putting their name to. So no, that's not acceptable. As a humanitarian of nearly 25 years, there's a very dangerous issue going on. So I hope the United Nations is acting in the best interests of the declaration. I hope the United Nations isn't supporting crime against my humanitarianism. I hope the United Nations is aware of how many people's lives have been recovered and rescued as a consequence of my initiatives between 2017 and 2019, despite the poor politics and poor debts and poor mouths of people taking credit for work that they single-handedly have had no input or interaction or engagement with. It has just not been feasible for these people to lay claim to COVID-19 origins nor the Brexit origins. So the keys to my apartment that have been stolen and that are of contents of my child, my baby boy, any persons helping themselves or interfering with any belongings of my son or any of my creative intellectual property are putting themselves and their safety at risk, especially with already the damages and debts owed from that arrangement with the Department of Housing, Heritage and Local governance, local bodies. So there's an issue occurring. The World Health Organization is aware of the mental health practitioners that have been offending the Hippocratic Oath and that are unsafe to be associating with. Anyone compromised with the Hippocratic Oath does not have the support of the law or the system or the faith or the creed that guides the Hippocratic practitioners. So any doctors acting above the law, without the law on their side, are already in quite dangerous trouble for their crimes against my good name and competency, capabilities and credibility. So those people of slander, defamation, also are bringing this country into further disrepute that has already arisen as a consequence of offences occurring prior to Brexit in the 2017-2019 period that I single-handedly addressed, that is not down to any politicians' handiwork with spin doctors, charlatan tales that are only nonsense and silly. So I hope the United Nations is aware of how dangerous it is for any of my humanitarianism to be offended on behalf of more frauds, putting more children's lives at risk in this community where unlawful care orders, trespass and crimes against the Vatican are continuous by embarrassing individuals that consider themselves adults, unfit for purpose and not fulfilling their positions professionally or with a shred of dignity. So those persons responsible for stealing keys to my place of residence in Tralee Town, where I am owed for breaking and entering incidents, physical damages, disturbances of the peace and slander and false reporting, I should hope that the Chinese community are aware of the big importance and emphasis on zero tolerance also, and the dangers associated with any fraud associated with my academic research and recovery since 2006 that addressed all issues surrounding Brexit and COVID-19 and mental health of practitioners more than the victims of their offence that have not been obeying the Hippocratic Oath and taking credit for work that they simply haven't done properly. So it's quite dangerous in so many regards. South America, China, zero tolerance policy, the United Nations. I'm a humanitarian, 20 years, and the Department of Justice. I'm of huge crime prevention with the Victims Support Federation as well. So as well as the Narcotics Anonymous recovery advocacy, I have to say that there has been no respect for anonymity, privacy or confidentiality in these circumstances. So there has been awful failings as a consequence of all these crimes against my good name, character and reputation that has been slandered by individuals dodging and ducking dirty debts they owe since 2006. It's a sad sign of the times. So if the Garda Síochána wouldn't mind kindly addressing this urgently, as well as the IMF and the ECB, I am also just adding in that the wealth recovery that I have been initiating is down to no other portfolio only my own. There are people in Dublin in positions of politics that are not telling the truth as usual from this awful charade in County Kerry and taking credit for work they simply have not been earning their salaries for. So the Garda Síochána, there are keys missing. The details are on my page. My contact number is on my page. Any interference with any of my creative, artistic, intellectual property or any belongings of my little boy, and I can only say that the culprits are putting themselves at huge risk. It's as simple as that. So that's just for the interest of the Department of Justice with regard to crimes against my crime prevention. It's a sad sign of the times, and those benefiting from Brexit over in Britain, I would hope that you would be able to identify, relate and empathise with the sinister nature of all this sordid, sick situation. It's a sad, sad sign of the times.